All right, welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Bruen. Special guest this week, somebody you are probably a familiar face to many, seen on television on Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings for many years with the World Wrestling Federation, Nick Barberri, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure being on this show. Getting nice to kind of meeting you electronically for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nice to have you here. It's our pleasure for sure. And do a little deep dive into your career. Starting off, growing up as a fan, when did you first discover pro wrestling?
Pro wrestling, my brother had liked it before me, and I was a little younger and cartoony, so I didn't go for it at first, but I'm gonna have to say it was pretty much like a WrestleMania 2 type of moment. I don't remember anybody specific, but the whole show, just how it told a story, and it was from this place and that place. Saw it at Closed Circuit in New Haven, Connecticut, and we went out for pizza after too. And then we watched it on Closed Circuit, and then from there I started becoming a big fan. And one of my earliest memories of who was it? It wasn't like Hogan or anything. One of my first memories where I committed to wrestling was when I was ready to fight my friends that Ricky Steamboat really got his larynx crushed, you know what I mean, by the bell and everything. So, I'm defending Ricky Steamboat, and that was, I think, my first commitment to professional wrestling.
And can you pinpoint maybe one moment or a particular moment that you decided, you know what, this is something I want to do? And how did you go about, starting the training and getting your foot into the door?
Well, I think that goes a part of my character, and my wrestling company that is Wrestling with Character, being a teacher and having that background and really being able to look at some social emotional stuff. Like when I get pissed off and angry, I work 10 times harder. I've noticed that happening to me around, and something that I wasn't aware of and I maybe reflected on, but when I get that trauma or something in my way, I just, whatever, I'm going to prove myself. And I was supposed to play football, wrestle, and do track for Trinity College in Hartford. And they're, a top end small Ivy League school. So as a blue collar family and not having any money, I set my limits very, very high. And it was really heartbreaking to hear 2 weeks before I'm ready and trained and ready to go play football and wrestle that I can't go because my parents couldn't afford it. So I think that was really the gas on the fire. And I'm like, well, you know what? I love wrestling and I'm going to be a pro wrestler. And Pete Polacco, Just Incredible, or PJ, we'll call him PJ for the interview. PJ was training, he was a year older than me. And PJ was training at the Hart Brothers up in Canada in Calgary. And I was still a senior in high school. So when PJ came back and I was getting out of high school, it was like we met again. And a little prior knowledge, we'd had a backyard federation together for about 4 years beforehand. And
oh wow,
some spots and stuff there, but playing characters, and started that at an early age with playing multiple roles. And I remember I was IRS and Bam Bam Bigelow in the backyard. I used to come out to some Like It Hot for Bam Bam Bigelow too. Nice. So yes, it was good cartwheel too. Anyways, so we did that, and that kind of led to the heartbreak of not going in. I was coaching at my old school. I was coaching football, wrestling, and track, and I had the key to the mat room. So PJ and I would go in after my practice, and I'd open up the room, and we'd go in, and I was pretty much taught to train how to wrestle in the mat room at Holy Cross High School in Waterbury, how to do all that. So that's a neat little history thing. I was bumping on front bumping, back bumping on just probably 20-year-old mats, but maybe that's awesome. Why I liked it so much.
And you also have some history with Paul Roma as well?
Yeah, I'll continue the story off. So PJ and I were getting hungry, and back then there wasn't 6-7 places within an hour to go wrestle for. So it's okay, what do we do? We can't just wrestle each other all the time. How do we go find places from Yankee Pro and I think that's when I first met Bob Evans back in the day, as we are all 19 and everything, and looking for places. And big city Mike, I believe. Look at that.
Yeah.
It's a little blast from the past.
Yeah.
So, it was tough to find something. So we had heard about gym in Orange, Connecticut called Quest Gym. And PJ and I started driving about 45 minutes, and we were just paying like a $15 fee to go in and train in the ring for a few hours. So now I was getting beyond that. I was running ropes and doing spots because I already had all the much of the fundamentals down. So it was just bringing it there. And they told us how Paul Roma had just taken a school over for David Schultz. It was like a transition, and that's where Tony DeVito and Mike Bell were students under that like transition. And we met them, and Paul took us under his wing. And in like 2-3 months, me and PJ are wrestling enhancement matches down in WCW, as Paul was named a 4 horseman, and we knew about it beforehand. We didn't have to call the 900 numbers and, biting our lips. So we didn't leak that out, but we were a part of all that, like part of that experience and history in wrestling.
So early 90s, what was the atmosphere like backstage in WCW those times that you were there?
So my WCW experience was, it was more like going to like studio tapings down in Orlando. So it really wasn't a wrestling crowd. They actually had a big bear or something dressed up that would help like boo and cheer and kind of lead the crowd a little bit. So it was just more of studio tapings with some of like, if you go back to those worldwides, like you got to see, I believe, like Sting and Rick Rude on Worldwide. And, that's someone's paying for that versus giving it away for free or, anyways. Right. So, that was it was casual. Like we were like bussed in from a hotel or a resort that we all stayed at together. So it was just a big grouping, and me just first experience and, kind of knowing Paul, but, PJ and I don't think we were the bashful type. We were more comedians in the background, and we didn't take ourselves seriously. We were workers to the workers. So we could get the boys to pop over our little silly antics and all that. So I think they welcomed us a little bit. They also knew that we were young. So, it's starting the business, but there was a respect. And I played volleyball with Dustin Rhodes, I remember, and there was a poker night, a casino night that they did for us. So it was like a special little like occasion. And so they made it fun for everybody.
Oh, wow. Well, early on, you had the experience with working with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Was he detail oriented to the point where, similar to Macho Man, where he kind of went over everything beforehand? Was he kind of calling it in the ring? How did that go with him?
I really, honestly, I don't remember. But when I watch the match back right now, he made it like easy. Like I didn't know it was that easy. Whereas, wrestling at a camp or paying your dues on the indies before that, everything was like kind of stiff. And I was learning to protect my opponent and myself, but that was a different level. Like, I don't even think I could have absorbed it at that point. I'm like, wait a minute, like that was a tackle, that was a cover, like, whoa, and it was like a whisper in my ear. It wasn't talking. It was just a strange little whisper. It was where now I could, you see some matches, you can read the lips and hear the spot. This was it was different. And out of probably the 151-ish matches that I had, that was probably the easiest one that I had, and it was my first.
And was the pay structure in WCW doing enhancement matches the same as it was in WWF?
I don't remember that. So it was like you were brought in on a tour. So it was like X amount of days with a free room and hotel and food. So I believe there was a little, I think they were like $200 a day. Whereas at that time, WWF was $250 a day. So, and you could end up working a couple times on a show. Sometimes, like I know it was like, maybe like 3 or 4 times I experienced working multiple times, whether it was dark matches or, so that was the enhancement piece. I was a druid for the Undertaker, I didn't carry Mabel, but everybody else did. I was a little bit too tall, so you kind of had to have everybody equal height. So
yeah. Well, it doesn't look like that was the most enjoyable thing, carrying Mabel to the ring. So
Oh, well, that's why I learned that when it's not uneven, it rests on one guy more than the other. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, what are your personal memories of the late Mike Bell?
Oh man, first off, it always hits me like hard. Like one, his dad is my like a tax accountant my whole life. Like so, I was always connected in there. And I was at an athletic director conference like the day he passed. So when I got the news, I was in San Diego where he had passed. So for me, it was like it really I was beside myself. It still does just talking about it. Mike Bell actually had like a scholarship to Cincinnati and played football for them. So whatever Mike put his mind to, he was the Poughkeepsie area. Like he like welcomed us in, and I learned a lot about it at Marist College. And that's like we were in our early 20s and everything. I was in college too for a part of all this. So he was like a brother to me. Like Tony still is. Like we text or call each other, and we might not have talked in a decade, and we're just picking up where we left off. And I'm like, yo, I'm going to be in Orlando. You want to hang out? And trying to make schedules meet. So, those guys were like brothers to me. And you know, Mike wrestled for me under Millennium Wrestling. I had my own federation from like 99 to 01, 02 or something like that. And Mike Bell was a champion. Like, we'd come back around like after like, a few years and everything, but it's just kind of sad. When you talk about mental health nowadays, you can go back and probably make some big connections to things that maybe were the big tough guy and the macho, and some of the stuff was maybe a little cry for help sometimes.
Another certainly gone too soon, that is for sure. Mike was a great talent. Got the chance to see him a couple times in WWA for Mike Spada. I was the ring announcer. I was a ring announcer there, and he was there a couple times. So that was my only interaction with Mike, but seemed like a great guy.
How did I not know you, Joe? I was on all those shows. Maybe I was living the gimmick. Anyways, let's continue.
Yeah. So another talent that was around the same time as you, Mike Moraldo, also known as Ace Darling. Any personal memories with him?
Yeah, hungry. I like to say jobber. I call myself a jobber or jabroni. I kind of take it with a grain of salt, but yeah, it was a go-getter. Reno Riggins and Mike, Mike was more on the East Coast where Reno was down there, but those guys were always like looking to hustle or trying to make a connection and try to take it to the next level. Like, part of that generation was the Hardy Boys too. So it was Gil and Hardy too, Gilbert. Like there was a group of us that were, we were doing the jobs, but we were also trying to figure out how we can use talent enhancement to get ourselves a look or how to get in, or maybe they see us as like Devito is trying to be a troll and, like trying to present ideas and throwing things at them to say, hey, give me a shot.
Yeah. And you did some stuff in WCW. You arrive in the WWF. What was the atmosphere like there backstage? Now you're there kind of regular. You're doing a whole bunch of shows with them. You're on Superstars. You're on Challenge, Shotgun Saturday Night over the years. I mean, you were working with them quite a bit.
Yeah. So WCW was actually the first talent enhancement that I had before WWF. They were probably like 2 months apart, maybe. The WCW experience was I was able to go down with Paul Roma. So, the more I think of it, there was 2 tours. And I believe the first tour that I went on was there was tapings down at Universal Studios. So back then in Universal Orlando, they let the crowd come in and studio tape in. They had this big bear that would teach the crowd to cheer and boo because they weren't fans. And they would put on talent enhancement matches, but they would also start writing. Like the TV tapings were some enhancement, but they were writing it for like 2 months ahead. So they were trying to parallel their storylines. And I think like if you go back and watch them, they'd make no sense. Or you get a main event like Sting against Rick Rude on Worldwide when that could have sold out, Macon, Georgia. And and here they are giving it away for free just for TV. So, if you go back, I think, folks that really want to look at a part of that WCW history, that's where they were trying to copy the Superstars and Challenge, but they were preloading all the tapings and then worrying about it later. So different, interesting business model there. We also I got to go on a tour where I know I did the dark match for the Harlem Heat. I got to see like a couple arenas. I don't remember where it was, but it was like, an old NWA arena where they like it was in a horse barn, and it like had all the like seating, and in the middle circus, almost like a circus, like the ring was in the middle of like the horse like barn, and that's where the seats were. And boy, was that like the coolest and like rowdiest like atmosphere. I didn't get to wrestle. Like I was like, oh PJ, I hope they put us on together. Like this would be the like coolest, but they had like some of the best matches, pretty wonderful. I'd wrestled that night, and it was just great to see a house show in that environment. So the fan in me kind of enjoyed that piece.
Now, the enhancement talent in the WWF, did you guys have your own dressing area? Did you dress with the superstars? Were you all together?
Um, so kind of, sort of. There was different levels of the locker room that would be there. After a while, it didn't matter like which one I went to, but definitely in the beginning, I was more paired off with, the extra talent in one room with maybe like, Duke Droese and Aldo Montoya because they were just signed, and Candido, like, it was more like or Louis Spicolli. It was more like we're all at the same, like they're a level above us, but we still had a lot of respect from each other just from knowing each other on the indies or knowing of each other or what have you. So, there's like a leveling in of, where you are on the card or seniority of being there, et cetera.
How was it to work with the 1-2-3 Kid, Sean Waltman?
A lot of fun. Training with PJ, like I had already had some, like, I don't know, not that feel like I'm a big man, but I was much bigger than PJ. So like I always took the babyface stuff from him. I was the heel. So for me to work, 1-2-3 Kid, it was like, all right, I do very well with this type of, opponent, and I can make them look good really well. And like there's a give and take, and you can look at there's two matches on YouTube of myself. The first one I think is funny because it's a rib when I was, maybe like 5 matches in with WWF, and I'm waiting at the gorilla position, and I had an all black singlet with green knee pads, and someone's like, you don't have enough color, and someone like whips a pair of like red trunks at me, and if I was an extra large, maybe these trunks are medium. And I'm like, he's like, you got to put them on. Hurry, you're going out. And I just took these trunks and I put them on in the dark, and I like go out. And the referee's like, yo, the trunks are on backwards and are inside out. So if you go in, the tag's sticking out. Gorilla makes a comment about it. And it was really just a rib. Someone at Gorilla was just messing with me and made me look like, I don't know, some black Christmas ornament or something. So yeah, you can go on YouTube. But the second match I worked him, I was starting to, you could comparing them, you could see the skill set starting to change a little bit, and the comfortability of the ring and the confidence, and there is like that enhancement match is much more competitive. Like he gives me so much, like I'm taking big bumps for him and feeding him my face. So, it was fun. It was fun. And it goes back to the roots. Like, when I wrestled Scott Taylor, sometimes I'm like, well, I can do all these spots I do with PJ. I got 101 spots for PJ. I just put you in them. And, like that level of comfortability, I think I always worked with someone that size a little bit better.
Walk us through a day in the WWF. You show up for a show. What time is call time for enhancement talent? And what are you kind of, doing throughout the day before your match?
It's usually 2 o'clock, and back then we didn't have GPSs, so you used an atlas to like travel. And I learned right away, even though the sign says Sparta, Pennsylvania, this exit, it doesn't mean like it's right off the exit, and it could be farther. So you had learning time. I was with people that couldn't figure that out, and I'd broken 100 miles an hour a couple times because, people didn't plan properly. So, there was that like angst of getting there on time, or you couldn't pick up a cell phone to call somebody at the building. So like, if you're late, you're like going to get in trouble, or they're not going to use you, or like, so there was that like time thing that was very, very important and stressful. And then you got there and there was so much downtime. So I noticed, I know when I got to be a little bit more like there for a couple of years and knowing people, I would be going in the ring a little bit before the show to, try a new move or to walk something through with some of the stars. So, but that was time and paying your dues and kind of people respecting you enough to say, hey, I want to pull you in the ring to go try some of this, help me out. So it was cool to experience that.
And you mentioned being friendly with Tony Devito over the years and still to this day. What are some of your memories with Tony over the years?
Listen, wrestling or humans. I don't. Tony. Just some of my first memories of Tony. Really, like tough cookie, man. Like he's tough as nails, and like he could work. He was an amateur wrestler, so like not only did he have that background and that like that understanding of hips and suplexes and everything, like you can give it to him and he'd give it back. So a little bit of snug style, like, and it made it good. It made it fun. Very creative mind, willing to take anything. Like as a worker, he's still doing it because he's still that good. And it's fun to kind of watch what he's doing in Florida and all that. But off of that, like the humor and the family man and the ribbing and like a good friend, like, if you called him, he would bail you out like in a second. So, I can't say enough good things about him.
So during your time in the WWF, who were some of the road agents that worked, specifically on your matches over the years?
Road agents are Tony Gurria, Rene Goulet. Some of my booking agents were Howard Finkel and Tim White. Sometimes I would get calls from them, but I would say Goulet and Gurria were probably like the first two that would help out with matches. But when you went to like a lot of the enhancement stuff, unless something was going on around you, like it was a cookie cutter mold. A good example is going and watching one of Razor's jobber matches. Like all you need to do is put yourself in there and everything is the same like sequence. So watching someone over and over do all that, hey, how can I get into that? You know what? And rather than do that, can we be a little bit more creative and like do this? Or, I'll hit you a couple times and you don't sell this. And, so I think that's something I earned a little bit, maybe my own courage, maybe from making people laugh, that like comedian, and like when there is downtime, we're being silly and, goofy and or tripping and staging a fall when we're like out in public or just, kind of, we call it antics sometimes, like, me and my friends like call that antics, but out there it was working people around you, kind of just having fun with it. It's like, practicing, that make-believe.
Right. Any road stories that stand out from, any time in your career?
Kikuchi comes up to mind for many reasons. PJ just getting his contract and then me, going on the road with him. So PJ wouldn't have been paid for like hotels or travel, but I was. But he was also at the bare minimum contract. Well, Kikuchi didn't speak English and Sato wasn't with him. I think this was like right after. So here he is. He had an Japanese to English dictionary, and traveling, we would be going back and he would listen and he'd ask us words and he'd look them up. So that, so some road hours, that was interesting. And then the first hotel that we stayed in, like the back of Pennsylvania, I'm surprised we're still here, and we are, but that was an interesting one. So, we got to travel with him for like a whole tour, and that was like, it had to be like 4 days and hotels and, kind of being his interpreter and like taking care of him a little bit, making sure, from food or whatever we need to get into the gym and all that. So, but not knowing how to really like speak fluently, that, and I'm 19, 20 years old, like, what the heck do I do here? So, that was an experience, but, sometimes, we would get some downtime, and there was one time we're all out having a good time, and I don't think Kushi maybe drank so much. So maybe that night he did, but man, I saw him smash a glass on the bar, and then I saw him take the shards of glass and eat and swallow them.
Oh my gosh!
And I just disbelief, just absolutely disbelief. But it was like a B tour too, and like, everybody's having fun, and these are the guys I watched on TV, and now I'm mingling with them. So
right.
That's one fun story for you.
And what are your memories working with the mighty Yokozuna?
Well, I didn't take his suplex well, and I got popped in the air, and he taught me how to do that well. He was actually my first enhancement match in WWF. Not my
Okay.
first one, but he was my first that I had in there. I'd already kind of had a reputation from like working out in the beginning and making them laugh. So I didn't have to take the bonsai drop, which was pretty cool. I'll take that out of it. It was a belly to belly to his leg drop. But I definitely got that Samoan way of "don't make me look bad, kid." Gave me a
Right.
nice little ringer in my ear, but I deserved it, and bump better next time. But I got to work him again. It was him and Owen were tag team champions. I got to work them again. And ironically, later enough, when I was running the Millennium Wrestling Association, he came in for a weekend with us. So the crew took care of him. We did 3 shows that weekend. And on the last show, when Kurt and I, my business partner, Kurt and I talk about this, we kind of say, was he trying to get himself more bookings? Because what he did is somehow he worked the storyline for me and him to beat the Power Twins and win the tag championships. So I
Oh,
have held the Millennium Wrestling Association Tag Team Championships with Yokozuna.
that's
Fact,
fantastic.
fact, fact. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There
That's
is a
awesome.
picture too. There's a picture. So
Oh,
you hit
so
up
the proof
Kurt.
is there.
Yeah, there is proof. Yes.
That's awesome. Now, MWA. Why don't you give us the history on that and touch base on that?
Yeah. You got a nice little connection here to all the storylines. So what ended up happening is after the talent enhancement, there became like a phase where Gurria and Rene Goulet, they got changed away from, and Howard, they got away from like booking the extra talent, and Jim Cornette came in after Smoky Mountain, and then he had gotten signed, and he had parts to do with it. And a little bit of what happened is they got rid of the like Saturday morning, excuse me, they got rid of the Saturday morning jobbers or talent enhancement, and it was the era where Sal Sincere and TL Hopper and the Goon, they were brought in to be the talent enhancement to put the other guys over. So there was a shift in that era where they went away from the superstars and challenge, and they went into like enhancement that was already built in and had a contract, and maybe it was a house show thing or something too. So
Some of the other talents that you worked with over the years there, Steve Blackman, of course, Eli and Jacob, the Blues Twins, Blues Brothers, Henry O. Godwin, of course, and Triple H. What was it like being in the ring with a young Triple H?
Jeez. So I met him. I had met him a few times at Yankee Pro. So we knew of each other, and yeah, we knew of the connection of Kowalski and Roma's group up there. The first time I actually wrestled him was not on television though, and that's how Kurt Adonis had first met me. I was the last minute replacement at St. Paul's High School in Bristol, Connecticut. They called me at last minute because Bam Bam Bigelow couldn't make it. So the crowd, I went in and replaced Bam Bam. No cartwheels this time though. All right. So I saved that. And so I got to replace Bam Bam. I went and I wrestled Triple H on like a high school house show. And it was just great. It was fun. He made me look great. But that's where Kurt first saw me, and that's where it started making the connection. And a few months later, I used to work at a bar called the Stadium. I was a bouncer there, and Kurt lived there or next to it in town. He sees my brother, and next thing you know, we meet each other and became best of friends and business partners from there.
It's funny how life throws us in different directions. One thing always leads to another. So, everything happens for a reason.
Well, for Kurt and I too, is like, okay, we did this, we did the indies and the Millennium. He was one of the backbones of it. As far as ring and like helping type and helping like keep the office stuff going. And he was he's like 4 or 5 years younger than me. He was still in college and I had just kind of graduated. But we talk about that, how, yeah, we had an idea and a concept because Millennium Wrestling, it was the character piece. It was the 80s and 90s type of characters and bringing them to life larger. So we went away from that concept and we went and got our real jobs from him working with ESN and productions. And behind the scenes there, and me being a teacher, and we took all that years, and now as we get to move on with like the next stage of our career and something exciting, we've been talking about, wow, we're taking all the skill sets we've learned after Millennium Wrestling Association and that fault or that mistake, and we're applying it, and we're taking the same concept and we're like magnifying it by 100, and now we're able to run with it, and we're business smart, and we're doing things much more wise, and we have a plan, and and we learned a lot going through things the first time, so we don't let those same mistakes happen again.
And there's a lot of different ways of looking at it and kind of picking who you want on it, but if you had to pick 4, who would your Mount Rushmore be? Any era pro wrestling history?
I've always seen others, and I haven't really thought of my own. But pro wrestling history, boy, geez, I'm on the spot because I'm like, well, is that heels and villains? And if you could combine it. But if you look at like people that like made stars, Hogan has to go on there, and Ric Flair have to go on there because they're the reason I picked up the magazine every single time. Right. I picked up that magazine because they were on the front, and then I learned about other people behind it. If I had to say people that worked like work rate, and or do you say like when you go to the next 2 is like, all right, I did it for that, but who picked up off of them or who kept me engaged that whole time? Then I got to say Bret Hart, because I imitated him a little bit in my own style, and when I go back and watch, I didn't know I was doing that, and then I go back and watch my old stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, that was being Bret Hart, and I don't even like realize it. And I think that's a connection there that I would put Bret as one of mine, that like the excellence of execution and just the storytelling. Like I love wrestling to be a story. I love it. It's supposed to be a story. Yeah. And if you know how to work and you know how to wrestle and you know your opponent and what they do, you could really make that story come together. So Hogan, Flair, Hart, and I would have to say Steve Austin. Just he relit the torch, and he's been the next stage to keep it going for this cycle.
It's a great lineup right there. And what advice do you have for up and coming wrestlers, people that want to get into the business on any capacity, really?
I'm gonna have to do sales and go to 3 things. One, you got to work out. If you don't work out, that was told to me day one, and I think that was the biggest crutch to me is, I didn't get my work ethic of the gym and training till like after my phase of rugby. I didn't bring that up, but I left wrestling in between enhancement when Sal Sincere and those guys came in. The opportunities weren't there anymore. They weren't in the indies. And then I was playing competitive rugby, so I kind of leaned towards that instant gratification. So then I came back after I graduated. That's when I came back and the Millennium came alive. So that little circle there is just kind of just a spin. And I think my going in and out of wrestling has been a spin because I want to learn other things, or I dedicated myself to teaching. And then when I got like Forrest Gump, I got to the end of teaching and I'm like, well, what do I want to do now? And I'm like, I love to entertain people, and I love to teach about social emotional learning, and I love 70s and 80s house shows, and I like being creative, and I'm a big fan of Disney. Like, how do you just take all this? And I love cheap comedy humor, Saturday Night Live. Like, so Wrestling with Character Live is a lot of all that, just that comes together. And, that the way Kurt and I could feed off of each other, it's whether it's in the ring or being a promoter or writer or producer or booker or whatever, like, we're finishing each other's sentences, like, as we're telling the, like, funny spot we're pulling up, tonight. So we were planning Shockwave's dance party tonight, and then we were just laughing hysterically, but it's work and hours, and the product's going to be great. It's going to be one of our best dance parties. It's very creative. So that energy keeps us going, and, when it's tiring from flying all weekend and, waiting an extra half hour because the printer messed up and all this, like, it's the reward of making ourselves laugh because we know we're going to make everybody else.
And fans that are just discovering Wrestling with Character now, kind of explain maybe some other things that the fans don't know about it. And obviously you just talked a little bit about it there. Where can they find you? How can they follow you? Website, social media? Let's hear it all. There it is.
All right. Well, Wrestling with Character Live. So that is Wrestling with Character and Live. And that's that Saturday night piece that we kind of bring into it. So it's wrestlingwithcharacterlive.com is the website. You can buy all your tickets and everything off of the website, but you go into old school, you get to look at the character and their bio, like your G.I. Joe card there, or like, your LJN figure. So, you get to go there and kind of see that. You can see some highlights and just find out more about fundraising and the people we help. So the website is really informative, and we have a gentleman, John, who's been working on that and revitalizing it and making it work for us. Instagram and Facebook are our two big social medias, Wrestling with Character Live, both of them, where you can find out we're a week away from Halloween Hoopla, which is on October 25th. So, 2 to 3 posts will be coming out a day, and from little short videos to reels to explaining what's going to happen to maybe some little Easter eggs that if you're paying attention, you're going to pick up when you're there. That's what really makes us unique. Different than independent wrestling. We have many of the folks on the independent scene wrestle for us, but like what I like to say is when Nick Barberri, former WWF talent enhancement, walks through the curtain at Wrestling with Character Live, he's playing Professor Ulysses Spite, Professor U Spite to you. Ha 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 ha. So, Dr. Heresy is playing Bully Heresy. So we have this like imagination thing, this Pee-wee's Playhouse that we're stepping into. So Open Your Imagination was the first show that we did, because that was like our theme and where we were going to. And that was, you look back as, the wrestlers we hired, the fans, the people that worked for us. Some people don't want to buy in, so we move on with who do. And, we built from there, and we look for strengths and weaknesses. And I've met some great people, coming back in and doing this that I didn't know, and they didn't even know who I was, which was kind of funny a little bit,
Yeah.
My history was not out before I was the promoter. They're like, who's this guy? Like, spit out this, what does he know? And so a little bit of that, like, adjustment as we kind of came in. But we're going on our 7th show. That's Halloween Hoopla. And then we've hit our goal, and within 2 years, we got our first high school show. It's called Wrestling with Cross. Killer Cross is coming in with Scarlett Bordeaux. The main event hasn't been announced yet. That'll be coming up in time. But we have the Mountie, which I'm marking out for, and I'm really excited to be working with him. He's given us some of the passion for the silliness and antics that we're bringing alive, because the Mountie always gets his man. So remember that on the show. Anyways, so we're bringing Jake the Snake in. Mercedes Martinez is coming into the show. This is near her hometown, and she hasn't wrestled here in a long time. So she's bringing family and friends. So that's going to be some good energy. And she goes against her rival and one of Wrestling with Characters villains there, Queen Ariel, with King BMT. So they're going to be facing off. We also have Dustin the Flash Waller is going to be there. Sammy Diaz. So we have some of the best local talent as well. Shockwave will be performing. So you get to see the robot, and a big old dance party that's going to happen at Wilcox Tech in Meriden, Connecticut. So I don't think we've ever had a 1,000-person dance party. So that'll be a first too. And then there is a show, our Holiday Hijinks 2 is coming up. That's in December 14th. We've come full circle, same fundraising group, Beautiful Lies Project that we're going to be working with, and we hit the 2 on everything. So that's going to be a cool announcement, and we have some really cool stuff planned for that in December. So the fall is going to be an exciting time for us, and I'm getting ready to put that together now. Going back to like what you'd experience when you come to a Wrestling with Character live show. I could start with the Halloween Hoopla. We have our trunk or treat in the beginning. So there's going to be a trunk or treat for an hour and a half, and then the show's going to start at 6. But on our normal shows, the building opens at 4:30. But you'll see all the like superstars will be at stations, just like you would at Disney, and you can go and you can meet them, and you can get your picture taken. You can get your autograph with them, and then the villains pop in. And then they start telling the story. That's where they're cutting their promos. That's where the conflicts are happening. And then that tells the tale of the tape, and we segue from the pre-show into the show with a monologue. Lauren St. James plays a character called Tinsel, and she's a monologist. She comes out and she cuts bad jokes, and she preps, and we get everybody hyped up, and Kurt comes out, and we set the show and the tone for the day. We tell everybody to put your cell phones away and get ready. And if you're on a cell phone, you're going to be missing the Easter eggs that are all around you. We have a group of pillars. You would probably relate to them as minions to Gru, but the pillars of character are stagehands. So they're up to things here and there and like helping make the show better.
So Wrestling with Characters really producing a lot of content right now, and there's no means in stopping anytime soon. You guys are full force, and it sounds like you got a lot of you've already had a lot of big shows and a lot of big shows in the forefront. So I'm excited to see what happens with Wrestling with Character. I certainly encourage the fans to visit that site, check them out. These guys are just over a year now into it. As far as
we're just about 2. It'll be 2 next April.
2. So, okay.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see.
And if anybody is looking for fundraisers, we work with community agencies, from youth wrestling teams to challengers groups, to unified sports groups, little leagues. We've been able to work them, and we have a residency at the VFW in New Britain. So we have 2026 is already scheduled there. So we just feed off of that, and hopefully this next high school show multiplies into 2 or 3, and we're going to be up and steady and ready to entertain.
And rewinding back to another iconic spot here in the New England area, the Hartford Civic Center. You defeated Tony Roy in the center of the ring there. 2 New England boys coming together, and you took it home that night. What are your memories of that night and working with Tony Roy, a.k.a. Antoine Rua?
Oui. I love Tony. Like, we would go back to the Sparta and the WWA, like, whether I wrestled Tony or I was his tag team partner or knowing him from them. And, he's a character in his own right. Yeah, that was an exciting night. I didn't know what I was in for. I think that was a guerrilla moment putting us together. And back then, the dark matches, either they would be like bring in somebody like Chris Chavez. They would bring him in to see what they wanted to do with him, or they were use like talent enhancement to set the cameras and get everything ready to make sure before they went live, because that was a Raw. They would do like a quick 2-3 minute match just to get the cameras right and all the angles, just to make sure nothing would happen when they went on. So I was more in that situation. So I beat him. I did the old finish. Like they called it pretty quick. I think the match was like 3 minutes total. So we're out there. We're trying to do our thing. We're getting the crowd involved, and we get into like 2 or 3 spots, and they're like, "Go home!" And I just did this little quick roll. I did the old Bret Hart, Davey Boy Smith finish. Like sunset flip, grab his legs, 1, 2, 3. That was my big moment. One for life in the WWF, but that was cool. It was in my hometown, so that was cool. Kurt got to see that again, so there you go. You're adding to him marking out for me there. But like my brother missed it. He was late by a couple minutes and he heard it, but he didn't get to see it. One of my rugby friends rushed the ring and got thrown out. So there's all this stuff going on.
That's awesome. Now another match. I mean, you can't go without talking about this one. A very unique situation. The middle of Times Square, New York City. It's the WrestleMania public workout. And you went one-on-one with the late Owen Hart, one of the greats. What was it like not only working with Owen Hart, but you're working with Owen Hart in the middle of Times Square? You got people everywhere. It's not a normal situation, but it's awesome. So tell us about that day.
Well, and I was supposed to wrestle Bob Backlund, and it got changed while we're under buses. Oh, yeah. So one, like Owen was like always special even before that moment. Because it was a ribber, he would latch on to other people to maybe get you in trouble, like be his like front and his smoke screen sometimes. But he was also down to earth. I actually have to write this down because I did something. I did another podcast and someone triggered this memory that I just remembered as you're talking to me. But, he was supportive of me. I would work out with him in the beginning. And like when him and Jim Neidhart were like a tag team, they brought me in and they would do stuff to me and everything. And you forget that you're out in front of a building and people are there. And I remember him whispering, "Yo, you got to sell that, sell it." So, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, shoot, you're right. Like, I'm not at school right now, like, even though the arena's empty, people are watching, right?
Right.
So, those are things. And Spicoli was another one that I remember hanging out a lot with those two and just getting in the antics and Owen ribbing people and pointing to me and like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, So, even stood up for me like one time when I was out of wrestling and I went to visit and Pat Patterson is like going to kick me out. He's like, "Do you know who this is, Pat? Are you kidding me? You don't, and you're shitting me, Rowan." He's like, and talking in his broken English voice, and they're going back and forth. And he's like, "No, this is him." And he's like, he asked someone next to him, "Who is this?" And, "Oh, that's Nick Barberri." And Pat like shaking his head and like just leaves, and another time with Owen, which was great. This might have been on the TV. I think I wrestled Bigelow and Tatanka. They were part of the $1 Million Corporation. And
you were with Chris Canyon?
Yeah, Chris Canyon in there, yeah, in that match. And in the back of that place, there was Owen had bought clothespins, and he was putting them on the back of people and all that when they didn't know, like middle school behavior. So, right. And he's getting me to do it. And then he's like, he eggs me on. He goes, "The ref's ready to go out of the curtain." He's like, "Go get him. Go get him." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I can go get him, Owen." And I go get him. And the ref goes out to the ring, and someone in the grill is just screaming, "Who the hell? Why is there a clothespin on that guy, on the referee? Who did it?" And I think it was Patterson, comes running like in. "Who's fooling around? If I find out who it is, you're out of here." And I am scared, like, beyond belief. Like, I just ruined my career right now. And Owen is just in there egging it on, like, and they're like, "It's you, Owen. It's not me, but I know who did it." And like, just that little like cat and mouse game. And the stories you hear, I just think he had that, like, and when there was so much downtime or whatever, he's just doing something. And what is the big deal, I guess? But I know you want to be professional, but it's also a work. So if you can't hide a clothespin, right? Could hide a razor, can't hide a clothespin. All right. And well, going back to like the Bob Backlund, I was supposed to wrestle Bob Backlund in Times Square in the middle there. And if anybody remembers, it was right next to that old booth that they used to do recruiting for the Army and military in Times Square. Like, that still existed, like, out there. We all met in a hotel beforehand, and they went over the matches. It was an exhibition match, and the main objective of this was to get the pull apart between Bam Bam Bigelow and LT in New York, doing the New York thing to kind of plug it. And, it was trying to get hype for that WrestleMania, which was in Hartford, Connecticut that year. So we meet at the hotel. They give us the agenda. I'm supposed to wrestle Bob Backlund, and I go over the match with Bob and all that, and everything's fine. And the baby faces get on one bus and the heels get on the other bus. And there was no cell phones again back then. So, and then we were to drive on both sides of the street. And when the exhibition matches were going to happen, the police would get out and stop traffic. And then you walk across to the ring in the middle there. And then they would let the crowd fill in all around the ring and everything. So, we're getting in the buses, and now I'm meeting Lawrence Taylor. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is kind of cool. Like, I was kind of a little starstruck by him. And we're in the bus, and then all of a sudden someone's like, "Barberri, you're working. You're not going to work Backlund. You have to work Owen." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh my God." Yeah, I'm confident enough, but boy, not running catch can in the middle of Times Square against Owen Hart was, that was a next level thing. So, all right, we're going to do now. If you go back and watch that match, all that was called out there, which makes you kind of get a different level of appreciation for the match. And you can kind of see at the end, I start getting some stuff on them, and I'm like, well, I'm going to slam them. And they're like, "Take it home." And then I can't slam them, and I stop, and I go into the match instead, go into the finish. So, that was neat. I think I gained his respect that day in a lot of ways. I know he was like joking with me after, like I take a spin kick and I always like to feed my face and bust my nose, and like they couldn't get every camera angle because they couldn't put blood on the TV, or they didn't want to put it like over Ty's there. So that was a kind of a funny little story out of it.
And was Owen as nice as everybody says, when it comes to working with him?
100%. Again, when you go back and like I watch some of his matches, and like you see that cookie cutter stuff that he kind of always did, and like how you get around it, but he had that Bret Hart ability like to tell the story too. Like he had his own move set, but the way he got to it when he wrestled against somebody that outside talent enhancement, like boy, like can he go and could he work?
Now you worked on the indie scene and in the WWF with Superbad Steve Bradley. What's your experience like working with Steve those few times there?
When he was first, I worked with him a couple times, like that I only remember when he first had like started wrestling. So I knew he was like green. I remember him grabbing that right arm one time on me. But then like you talk years past and he trained, and I come back and I wrestle him at the Springfield Civic Center, like in one of his tryout matches. And they told us just to like go at it. And like we went at it, and it was a great match. Like he was the level that he had gotten at, and the ability and the spots, and he was that size smaller that I like to work with and can do all the jumping. Like I was catching him in all his unique moves and all that. We got to a point in the match too. I remember I tried like the spot, and then I'll give you another tip. What do you tell? Like never do something out in a ring that you've never practiced. That would be another tip, that out on a show that you've never practiced in a ring. Sure. Because I thought I was going to Taz the Taz suplex, where you grab them up by the neck and you like pull them over. Well, I saw it on TV and I'm like, oh, I could do that. Well, when I pulled him up and over, I couldn't get him over me, and the way he jumped was different, and I sat out with it, and it was like better than the rock bottom. So I did catch a little slack from that in the back, but the intention wasn't a rock bottom. It just ended up panning out to be that way out of just not breaking someone's neck. So right. That's something I meant, and like I'm embarrassed a little bit to this day, but it was what it was. But there's the lesson. Don't do something you've never practiced. And I've seen that out of a lot of people in the indies, and I tell them, especially when they go to the top rope and they're going to do this stunt that they've never done before, it never comes out right, And
how about your memories of Tim McNeely?
I texted a call right now. Tim's one of my best friends. I feel like I'm a member of his family. I always have an open door. I wrestle for Larry Huntley now at Gino's Pub in Portland, just so I can have a reason to go out, hang out with the McNeely family. Me and Timmy met when we were 18. We met as two college students in the back room, and he was from Kowalski's and I was a Roma's guy. And, there was not a lot of tension there, but there was some tension between we're better than you, or this camp, my camp is better than your camp type of thing, So we had that in the beginning, but there was always a mutual respect and that connection that we were in college together, and we always had some crazy stories to tell each other. So we had that bond. When I had left and came back, and when Millennium Wrestling had folded, there wasn't many places to work, but then there was, like, I was working my last shows and I had heard about Tim, and I'm like, I want him to come in and I want him to do an Irish gimmick. I want Tim. So I got him to do one show. It was one of the first last shows. And then we reconnected there, and we went out and hung out and had a blast, reconnected, and just, a lot of similarities and beliefs, and just who we are and how we treat life and how we have fun how we could have fun in a paper bag, I think, together. Yeah. And with the WWA, I had the opportunity to travel with him and stay with him for about 3 years of my life every month. We stayed in Watertown. We first became even closer as he wrestled the Sandman one night. It was the first night I'd been doing the Sparta shows for maybe about maybe 6 months now. And, he's like, listen, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I go home, or I'm going to go do this, or I get a hotel. He's like, you're staying with me. You're staying with me tonight. So the plan was to do that. And when he got slammed on the chair by the Sandman, one of the chair, something had broke on it, and it was like, it stuck up, and it almost punctured his lung. So that night we didn't get to hang out. I hung out in the lobby of the hospital waiting for him, where he almost had a punctured lung. And he's like, no one would do that. And right there was like the build of a family upon friendship. And I can't tell you, it's like a brother to me.
And some other great talents, some enhancement talents before and during the same time that you were there. Two duos. You had Barry Horowitz and Reno Reagans, of course. And then you had Dwayne Gill and Barry Hardy. Any experiences with them over the years?
Yeah. Gill and Hardy were always fun. Like they were joking. I replaced Hardy on a tour, a summer tour. They were wrestling the Smoking Guns, but I think they were under a hood, and they were on the tour, but Hardy got hurt. So I replaced Hardy, but I wasn't under a hood, but Gill was. And we wrestled the Smoking Guns. I also went on that tour. We did like Six Flags, New Jersey. We did a bunch of high schools in Long Island. I worked Candido like a half a dozen times in all those with Sonny. So I replaced Barry Horowitz. I replaced Sparky Plug, who broke his rib, but it was at the time where Horowitz had pinned Skip. Oh, so that was part of the easy, like they were chanting Barry, you know what I mean?
Right.
For me, I was getting the Barry chants going in my matches. That was a really cool experience being on the road. That was like the first time I got to like go away from home for like weeks, and that was a cool experience. And it was a B show, and, getting to wrestle Chris constantly was just so much fun. Yeah.
And for those just joining us, let's go back to Wrestling with Character one more time. Promote what we got coming up, the website, social medias.
Sure. Wrestling with Character Live. That's the name of the organization. WrestlingWithCharacterLive.com. You can find us on Wrestling with Character Live on Facebook and Instagram. We have our show on October 25th called Halloween Hoopla. There you have the main event of Wrecking Ball against the man formerly known as Anthony Green. August Green, smash hit August Green, will be coming in for that one. Following it up 3 weeks later, we have our Wrestling with Cross show. Killer Cross, Scarlett Bordeaux, Jake the Snake Roberts, the Mountie, Dijak, Mercedes Martinez, convention before the show and the autograph signing. We have best trivia ever. We have vendors doing toys, shoes. We have cards. So we have a different vendor for everybody out there, and you'll get to meet some of the Wrestling with Character superstars as well in the meet and greet. And there will be some pre-show antics definitely on that day too. You got it. And then on December 14th, we have Holiday Hijinks 2. We have a former WWF superstar in the TNA, that is in TNA, coming. And that one's going to be a fun holiday show. So, Wrestling with Character Live.
Awesome. So fans, definitely take this opportunity, check them out, see what it's all about. It's family friendly. It's the whole family is welcome to an event of this nature. So it's going to be something special like the previous shows have been. So really come out for Wrestling with Character, show your support all over New England. Come on out. And we look forward to seeing what transpires with the upcoming shows.
All right. Now, Joe, thank you very much. Always invited. I'd love to have you down there. You got to check one out. That way you could give it all. You could give the experience there. So you're always welcome.
Would love to be there.
Yeah. And please do. And we'll have a follow-up where we'll welcome Kurt, and I'll come on and share some other stories with you. We'd be happy to do that.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man. For Nick Barberri, I'm Joseph Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.